In this video, I'm going to show you how to place the brake hose on the rear of this Ford F-350 that goes from your brake line on the axle to your caliper. Let's get started. Let's remove the wheel. Sometimes these wheels have some center caps, so you're going to want to use a pry bar or screwdriver to pop that off before you get to the lug nuts. Usually if you just look around, there's going to be a cutout at some point that you can use to pry out on. And that exposes your 8 21mm headed lug nuts, so let's take those off. With those off, remove the wheel and set it aside. Let's first break free the fitting that goes from the brake line to the brake hose. A lot of times what happens is the line gets stuck inside the fitting, so when you try to spin this, the whole line spins with it. We're going to try to avoid that so that we don't break the line. So use an 11mm flare nut wrench because it gets a much better grip on this fitting than a regular open-ended wrench, and try to break this free. All right, so the whole thing is moving, that's okay. Let's put a 16mm wrench right on here to hold this steady. There we go. All right, so it is spinning the line. I'm going to try to get it to break free. I'm going to put some rust penetrant on there and work it back and forth. It looks like this is not wanting to break free. That's okay, because my plan is to remove the other end of the hose and then simply just twist the hose off of this fitting since the threads are broken free. The next step is to remove this mounting bracket here so that we can free up this end, and then we'll move on to the caliper side. Use a 10mm socket and remove this bolt. Well, unfortunately, this happens very often with these bolts. They break. So we're going to have to drill it and tap some threads for a new one, but for now this is removed. Now use a 14mm wrench or socket and loosen up the banjo bolt. Have a collection bucket underneath to catch the brake fluid that will drip. Take this out. Make sure no washers get stuck to the caliper. Inspect the bolt. Mine is in great shape. It's new actually, so I'm good to reuse it. If yours is not, consider getting a new one. You don't want to put a compromised bolt back on. At this point, take the hose and unthread it off of the line. For me, it looks like I have to hold my fitting and unthread the hose. All right. There it is. I have that hole drilled and tapped. It's ready to go. I'm going to put the hose onto the line now. Same way we took it off, just going to spin it backwards. Keep in mind that as you do this, fluid is going to come out the other end of the hose. All right, that's bottomed out. Let's attach it before we go any further. All right, now let's tighten up this fitting, hold the line, and snug up the fitting. Just give it a little extra, that's plenty tight. Now you want to take your banjo bolt, have one new copper washer installed, and then take the hose and put it through the hose, making sure that it's facing the correct way with this lip facing towards you, not towards the caliper. And on the other side of the hose, put another copper washer on. Get this started onto the caliper. And use a 14mm wrench or socket to snug this up. Make it so it stops leaking. And now let's torque it. Torque this banjo bolt to 26 foot-pounds. What you're looking to do is squish those two copper washers to create a nice tight seal. Let's clean this off so there isn't brake fluid dripping all over our caliper. Let's remove the bleeder screw cap, and then using a 10mm wrench, open the bleeder screw up. We're going to do a gravity bleed, and this will entail opening up the bleeder screw to let gravity pull fluid into the caliper and of course push the air out naturally. Now this should get most, if not all, of the air out of this system, or at least out of this line and caliper. But if you think you still need to bleed, do a full manual brake bleed, which you'll see how to do at the end of the video, and that should definitely take care of the air. For now, let's just wait for the gravity bleed to be done. What we're looking for is a steady trickle of clean fluid with no air bubbles coming out. We have a clean, steady trickle of brake fluid with no air bubbles, so I'm going to close this off. Snug it, clean this off with brake parts cleaner. And once it has dried up, make sure you cap this off with your bleeder screw cover so that it doesn't get clogged up with debris. Let's get the wheel back on. Start on all 8 lug nuts. We'll bottom them out in a cross pattern, and also in a cross pattern, torque them to 165 foot-pounds. Once again, 165 foot-pounds in a cross pattern. Double check them if you want. And then of course, if your vehicle had these lug nut covers, go ahead and put these back on. Line them up. Tap them on, and there you have it. Don't forget to top off the master cylinder, pump up the brake pedal, and take it for a road test. On the driver's side of your engine bay, you'll find your brake master cylinder. Looking closer, I'm going to use a rag and just wipe off all the debris that's around here since it has some sand and buildup. I don't want any of it getting into the master cylinder, contaminating my fluid. Once you have it wiped off, remove the cap, and if you read it, it'll say that you need .3 brake fluid to fill this system. Now typically I would remove all of the old brake fluid that's in the master cylinder. However, I know for sure that in my case I just put fresh fluid in this master cylinder, so I'm not going to be removing it. However, if you didn't just put brake fluid in it, I highly recommend removing it with a vacuum pump with a little reservoir on it, or a fluid transfer pump. Once you've removed most of your fluid, top it off with fresh .3 brake fluid all the way to the max line. We are now ready to start the bleeding process. The sequence on this truck is going to be starting at the right rear wheel, that's the passenger side rear. Then you move over to the left rear, driver's side rear that is. Then you want to top off the master cylinder so it doesn't go too low on fluid. Then you move over to the right front and bleed that caliper, and then lastly the left front, which is the driver's side front caliper. After that you top it off again, and if you feel that you need to bleed more, repeat the same procedure in the same sequence until you're satisfied with the feel of the brake pedal, not forgetting to top it off every other caliper. We are now at the right rear caliper, and we're going to put a 3/8 wrench on the bleeder screw. Have a collection bucket underneath ready to catch the fluid. I actually have this hose attached to a little bottle that's going to do that for me. And of course an assistant in the vehicle ready to pump up that brake pedal so we can actually create pressure and bleed the system. I'm going to set this up, and you can go ahead and pump. All right, they're holding pressure, so with pressure being held, I'm going to open the bleeder screw. Okay, pedal hit the floor, so I'm going to close it off. Go ahead and pump again. All right. Go ahead and pump one more time. This is nice clean brake fluid. You want to do this until you see clean brake fluid and of course no air bubbles coming out of the bleeder screw. All right. Perfect. I'm going to remove my hose. This was a perfect bleed. You can let go of the brake pedal now. We have clean fluid and no air bubbles. So I'm going to wipe this off, spray some brake parts cleaner if needed. And of course, if you have the little cap that goes on the bleeder screw, go ahead and put that on. Now we're going to repeat the process on the left rear caliper, do the exact same thing, and then top off the master cylinder and move to the front. We are now at the right front caliper. Master cylinder is topped off again, ready to go. I'm going to take the little cap off the bleeder screw, get my hose attachment and my 3/8 wrench ready, and you can go ahead and pump up the brakes now. Holding. All right, holding pressure. So open this up. Whoa. Okay, hit the floor, close it. All right, go ahead and pump again. Okay. All right, I got some air in this one, so go ahead and pump again. Once again, you want to bleed until you have no air coming out. Okay. All right, go ahead and pump again. This is looking better. Perfect. You can let go of the brake pedal now. No air in this one. The air that was visible in the hose was actually just from a bad seal right around the end of it. So I'm going to clean all this off. Use some brake parts cleaner if needed to rinse off the brake fluid. Once it has all dried up, cap off the bleeder screw and repeat the process on the left front caliper. Now that we're done bleeding, let's top off the master cylinder one last time to make sure it's full. Put the wheels back on and torque them to 165 foot-pounds, and there you have it. Job is done.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.